Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar today, where we're going to be looking at various issues relative to research and development. I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director of ESS BIZTOOLS. I hope that you're having a great day. If you have any questions during the webinar, can you please type your question into your computer and I will answer the questions later in the webinar. If, however, you're watching this at a subsequent time and you do have any questions, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au. We're just waiting for a couple more people to come on so we can get underway. Okay, so we're talking today about the 10 steps to analyze research and development. And we're moving into the second phase of this series of webinars, where today we're going to be looking at the 10 steps getting ready for a research and development project. In our first webinar in this series, the research and development journey, we looked at the 12 steps to plan a research and development project. So I think it's worthwhile just revisiting that once again. And we'll just bring those slides up so that you can see them, so that we can analyze the information. So I'm just So we're going to be looking at these 10 steps, which are quite important when it comes to understanding the various components of a research and development project. So step number we need to go back through the 12 steps from the previous research and development project. First of all, just to remind you what we discussed last time. It needs to be a great idea. The business needs to undertake some preliminary investigations. The applicant must be a company. That is the only type of entity that you can claim the research and development incentive rebate. That's not to say you cannot undertake research and development if you're not a company. You can, but you will not be able to claim the research and development tax incentive rebate. The inventor or part of the team needs to undertake some prior art or literature searches, and you need to be able to identify what the core activities are that you're going to conduct your research activities into. And you need to identify new knowledge. You then need to be able to identify the hypothesis. What are you setting out to prove or disprove from your research and development activities? What's the experts' opinions? Do they think this is going to be the development of new knowledge, or are they saying that it's already been developed by somewhere else in the world? If you want to conduct any work overseas, you need to lodge an overseas finding by the 30th of June of the year that you're undertaking the work. But my recommendation is that you lodge your overseas finding before you spend $1 on any overseas-based research and development activities, because you might get knocked back by the Australian Taxation Office and Oz Industry in being able to claim that overseas work. Our recommendation is that you prepare a research and development plan. It's not part of the legislation for companies with turnovers under $20 million per annum, but we recommend it because it's part of the scene. It's part of the systematic progression of work concept that's embodied into the legislation and the rulings from the ATO and from Oz Industry. So accountants, who are the main people watching this video, please talk to your clients about the desirability of the preparation of an R&D plan. The plan and the attached documentation as to the budget and the return on investment, which is also what we recommend that you prepare, should be submitted to the board of directors for approval. This is very important because it is really a crucial part of the systematic progression of work that the whole project has been appointed by the directors. And when the directors have issued their approval, which should be part of a board minute, we're ready then to move into getting ready for a research and development project. So let's get going, and we will now go to step one, appointment of a team. This is the internal team, but there needs to be some checking before you start undertaking a research and development project, because this might cost the company a lot of money, and it's better to be alert to these activities at the very beginning of a project, not at the end when it might be going to cost the company significant amounts of money, because someone is able to make a claim that their initial employment agreement did not cover them working on a research and development project, and therefore they own part of the completed project. Most companies would not be very impressed with that happening when they've been paying the employee full wages. So do the employment agreements support the concept that whatever the employee is signed is covered, whether they're working in a research and development project or their normal duties? And have the employees assigned their intellectual property, and have they signed a confidentiality agreement? And does that confidentiality agreement relate to research and development? I had a webinar conversation with Matthew Karakalakis, the Principal Legal Officer of AMK Law last week, where we discussed the legal issues on research and development. And Matthew was very strong on the concept that these employment agreements should be rechecked before you commence, or one of your clients commences, a research and development project. If you want to watch that video, we have sent it around, but maybe you missed it, you can send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, and we will send you the link to that webinar recording. Okay, step two, appoint contractors, professionals, experts. Most research and development projects will require some external people to be involved. They might be university people, they might be consultants. It's very important to make sure that there is a contract with them. What are they being contracted to do? How are they going to charge? How often are they going to submit reports? And the intellectual property assignment's very important. If you're paying these external professionals, or your client is, I believe that the intellectual property being developed should be owned by your client. And there should be no opportunity for an external professional to be able to claim that they own part of whatever's been developed. But this is going to be determined on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the work contract says. So you need to make sure your client's fully aware of this. And there should be confidentiality agreements that have signed. Don't allow your clients or support your clients going on, oh, we've known this firm for 20 years and we'll just do it the way we normally do it. I don't think it's good enough. They should be making sure confidentiality agreements have been signed. Step 3, eligible expenditure for research and development claims. It's important that as part of the getting ready for a research and development project, that the people who are actually authorizing the work, but also the administrative staff, understand what the treatment has to be of expenditure for the company to be able to make its research and development incentive rebate claim, because this is dealing with both the tax office and Oz industry. So the work can only be on legitimate research and development activities, and it needs to be documented. And also we can claim the decline in value of assets that are being used for research and development purposes. In other words, the depreciation. There must be accurate record keeping. The records need to be available for 3 to 5 years after the event, so that subsequent audit activity can be satisfied. Step 4, the research and development project codes. I think this is a very important item, and it's part of the systematic progression of work, that when your client is subjected to an audit, they can clearly identify that there was an orderly process. And part of that orderly process is that each project has been allocated a separate code number, so that it facilitates the recording of the time that contractors or team members have worked on a particular project. It identifies the information that is going to be assembled relating to the experiments and the results of those experiments that have been conducted on that particular aspect. It just facilitates the orderly assembling of information. Because if you receive an audit, or your client receives an audit, it will be probably at least 2 to 3, 4 years later on. And this information could be very hard to assemble at that time unless it's been recorded in accordance with the principles of systematic progression of work. It's not only the work being done in that manner, but the administration side of it should also be prepared on that basis. Train the team and contractors that they need to be able to accurately record which R&D project they're working on, that they quote the number and the time that they've worked on that project each day, so that the record keeping is there and is able to be produced if a government organisation requires to view it. Step 5, the task codes. Also another very important part of the orderly planning of a project. I think every client should be encouraged, with your help as the accountant or business advisor, to prepare a list of the tasks. Now, some of these tasks might take 20 words to express. It's going to be a lot easier for the team and the contractors and professional consultants if they have a list of codes for each of those tasks, so that instead of having to write 20 words each time, and we all know that won't happen, it's a lot easier to write a task code. It might be ABC 001, and it's then able to be recorded, the time that has been worked on that particular task. This is very good from management's point of view, because it's showing you where the people have been working on what particular R&D project. And it's also an important component of satisfying the systematic progression of work requirements from the ATO and Oz industry, in that your team, if you're the business, or your clients, if you're the accountant or business advisor, have been able to clearly identify what was being done on the research and development project on a particular day and what time it was done. It's going to be a lot easier to defend the inquiries that might be received from the ATO. So you need to encourage your clients to train the team members and contractors, professional advisors on the task codes, perhaps get some input from those people, of course, as to what some of the task codes should be covering, so that the work that's being performed can be accurately prepared. Don't forget, if you have any questions, please send me an email. If you're watching this at a subsequent date, if you're watching this live, you can type your question in on Zoom, and that will come through to me, and I will look at that later on to give you an answer. Step 6, determine how the time recording system will be implemented. The recording system is basically what time units are going to be used. You're going to use hours and minutes and record in that way. I think that can be a bit unwieldy. One person's worked for 1 hour and 12 minutes, another person's worked for 32 minutes. Or alternatively, you could use a time unit like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. There's so many units of time that can then be allocated. That's up to you and your client to determine, but that needs to be ascertained. So that's just me saying what I just said. We're going to use hours and minutes or predetermined work times. I think the predetermined work times, 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever suits the client, is going to facilitate the recording of the actual time so that we have a progressive record. But if your client wants to do it in hours and minutes, that's okay. It's just going to take a little bit more effort to get the recorded right. Step 7, the work diary. It relates to the charging of time. In lots of ways, I probably got in front there and talked about the project code and the supporting code. One of our suggestions is that there should also be codes for the supporting activities. Please bear in mind that in research and development, we have the core research and development projects, which is what the research and development number's been allocated for. But then we have supporting activities, which can be claimed fully if they relate to a core research and development project. So those activities should have a number, and they should also be recorded in the system as to the hours that have been worked by team members and or contractors, consultants, or external professionals on that task. So the time spent can be recorded. Let's move on. Step 8 is the labour on costs. Under the legislation, a company can claim labour on costs. As part of the preparation, there should be agreement reached as to what are the legitimate labour on costs rates that the individual company can charge for holiday pay, sick pay, long service leave, workers' compensation, payroll tax if your client's paying it, etc. So what's the labour on cost that's going to be utilised on the labour? The labour costing summary, we're really emphasising labour in this discussion today, and that's because the labour cost is normally the most high cost factor when it comes to research and development. It's the company's team undertaking the work themselves. So we have within the ESS BIZTOOLS system a labour costing summary. Incidentally, we have summaries for every other aspect that I've talked to you today about. But the labour costing summary is going to record the progressive cost. which goes back to the timesheet, the recording of time from the timesheets to the internal labour summaries, the determination of monthly labour charges, processing of labour on costs, so that we have a determination of the monthly cost for an individual research and development projects or a supporting R&D item that shows the cost of the individual team member, so that that information is available for management to have a clear understanding of where the team has been deployed in this research and development project, but also very importantly, so that proof of time worked that has been signed up by individual employees is able to be produced as part of the substantiation by your client to the Australian Taxation Office and AusIndustry as to where this cost on research and development came from, how it was accumulated, how it was determined for the company to be claiming in its tax return and in the declaration that has to go to AusIndustry. Step 10 is just the consolidation of these research and development costs, bringing them all together so that a determination can be made as to what the costs are going to be. So as we're looking at getting ready for the whole process, my suggestion is you make sure your client understands how this system works, not only the research team and the R&D manager, but also the administration staff who are going to be tasked with the responsibility of making sure the accounting records have been prepared appropriately. So they need to understand how the system's going to work. And obviously that the admins people understand the system. Diarise that on a monthly basis, the consolidated research and development costs on projects will be available for the R&D manager and the R&D team to review and to submit a report through to the board of directors as to what a particular research and development project is costing, because that's very important. The directors may get alarmed as to what the cost is reaching on a particular project and decide to discontinue that project. They need to be receiving accurate information as to what the costs are. So that's our overview today to help you to guide your clients into getting ready for a research and development project. If you get ready in accordance with the step-by-step process that we've outlined in the ESS BIZTOOLS Research and Development Product Package, we believe that your client will have a lot steadier relationship with the government authorities, the ATO and AusIndustry, because the information will be readily available to substantiate where the labour cost has been determined from. And in a future video, we're going to look at the other costs as well, but where have these costs come from? So if you want to know more about this process and the type of information that ESS BIZTOOLS can assist you in the delivery of business advisory services, obviously research and development's a very big one. Well, why don't you contact us? There's approximately 13,000 companies undertaking research and development in Australia, so they can claim the research and development incentive rebate. I suspect that many of those 13,000 companies, probably well over half, are going to be startups and small businesses and new companies that have been incorporated because the initial research and development's been done by a sole trader or a partnership, and then someone gave them some advice that they had to be companies to claim the research and development rebate. Or indeed, they may have said, let's get a certain amount of work done and let's see how it's going, see what it looks like. Then we'll make a decision whether we think this is going to be a worthwhile project. Unfortunately, they've missed out on that initial work, being able to claim that as an R&D rebate item, but they might be a bit happier that they have really satisfied themselves that this could be a worthwhile project for them to invest their money in. I think it's important that smaller and small sized accounting firms, medium-sized accounting firms, take a close interest in research and development, because many of the people who start this process are the traditional clients of small and medium-sized accounting firms all over Australia. And you really don't know who's doing research, do you? Some of them hide it very close to their chest because they've heard and read the various comments by patent attorneys, and they're right. They shouldn't be promoting or marketing it until they've gone down the patent registration path. But they can still talk to you for advice on a professional basis. And if you're like me, well, you might have great difficulty understanding what their invention is in any case. I don't think that's our role. Our role is to make sure that the client gets the best possible advice on how their system can be set up, how it can be documented, that the work that they have put into it is able to be substantiated in their research and development incentive claim with the tax office and Oz Industry. If they've elected that they would like to get a patent, well, that's a patent attorney that they need to be talking to go down that path. There's an opportunity for you, though, to grow with your clients. And I worry that many accountants are missing out on this opportunity, because someone who's in research and development, who then wants some support on lodging their research and development incentive rebate claim, that's interesting work for accountants. And there are some significant fees that can be charged because there's a fair bit of work involved in undertaking research and development activities. And if it's a new client, they need to understand the system. They need to understand the record keeping that's involved. And that's work that you can charge them for. But then they could probably consider going into or making application to be admitted to the Accelerating Commercialisation Grant Program. This is a grant of up to $1 million on a 50% government funding basis. So the work could be $2 million. And it can be completed over a 2-year period. And this is the commercialisation work, because at the end of the R&D project, they've basically got a prototype or a sketch of a computer program that they're going to develop. They still need to do more work. And there's a lot of extra work. You know, the government's saying that on a 50% basis, they're prepared to advance $1 million. And there's about 7 or 8 companies every month get that $1 million. There's a lot of others that get a lesser amount because that's all they asked for. That's all they had, they could substantiate that they needed. So the Accelerating Commercialisation Grant is a fairly complicated application process. In my opinion, most applicants will need assistance by their accountants or someone like myself, because I've done a number of these over the years. In fact, I was involved as a business advisor to Oz Industry on the program that preceded Accelerating Commercialisation. It was called COMET, Commercialising Emerging Technology. So I know what's involved in getting an application together. And there's an opportunity to continue to grow with the clients, because at the end of this process, and it might be after the research and development phase, or if they've gone, the client's gone into the Accelerating Commercialisation, it might be as part of that to find their 50% of the funding. the client could be eligible, probably will be eligible to apply for the early stage innovation company status, which is great for the company to receive some investment money because the government has built into that classification of an early stage innovation company that the arm's length investors in that original investment round receive some significant taxation benefits, so as to make it attractive for investors to invest in a company that meets the requirement of an early stage innovation company. And let's look at what's involved in doing that. First of all, the company directors and leadership team need to understand the process, what's involved in being an early stage innovation company. They will then need a business plan, budgets and cash flow forecasts, because they're going to have to submit this to a potential investor. They might be trying to raise $1 or $2 million. They're going to have to submit something. And then there's the due diligence review process to determine whether they qualify as an early stage innovation company. And there's 2 qualification streams that they need to be able to look at. And they're going to need your assistance in undertaking that due diligence review, because the principles test requires the finalisation of that review to be submitted to the Australian Taxation Office for approval. And a document then needs to be prepared so it's available to go to investors so that they can see that the various requirements of the tests have been complied with before they hand over their money. Because they're handing over their money on the basis that they're going to get shares in a company and they hope the company's going to go very well. But straight away, they're going to get a tax rebate based on the level of their investment, which for a retail investor is a maximum of $10,000, but for a sophisticated investor is a maximum of $200,000, calculated at 20% of their actual investment into the company. And at the end of all that, I think there's a real opportunity for your firm to talk to the directors of the company and suggest that you offer a virtual chief financial officer service. Because in most cases, in fact, I think in all cases, hopefully they've appointed 1 or 2 additional directors to their board who have got commercial business experience. They're experienced directors, and they're going to be demanding that the financial reports, the budgets and cash flows are all updated each month so that that information is submitted to the board so the board knows what the position is. So there's a great opportunity for your firm to have gone through the full journey: research and development, accelerating commercialization grant, early stage innovation company, which also incorporates business plan, budgets, cash flows, and understanding of the overall process for early stage innovation company. And then it might be all topped up at the end by your firm being appointed as the virtual CFOs. I think that's really growing with a client. What do you think? I hope you agree. Now, you can find out more about all this by going to our website, www.essbiztools.com.au, or you can send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, and I'll be happy to have a Zoom meeting with you to discuss the ways that ESS BizTools and ESS BizGrants can assist you to add real value-adding services to your clients, provide interesting work opportunities for your team members, and earn attractive, differentiated fees to your accountancy business. I better check one more time. I don't think I got any questions. No, I got no questions. So Please have a great day and stay safe. And I look forward to talking to you in the next series of these webinars looking at research and development, which we will be presenting in 2 weeks' time, and we will send you an invite to participate. Have a great day. Goodbye.